Welcome to the Love Fly podcast. It's Paul Tizard, fearofflying coach, and today's guest is Rob, who's come from our Love Fly Facebook group, and Rob's here to tell a bit about his story. He's been a patient listener to quite a few of the podcasts, and I'm dying to hear what he's got to tell us. So welcome, Rob.
Hi Paul, thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up talking to me now, and what your background is, and anything you want to say really. So go for it.
Right, so I'm Rob Casserole. I'm 31, nearly 32. I live in Warrington in Cheshire with my wife Ruby and my 16-month-old daughter Dolly. Discovered Love Fly because we booked a holiday in May, just gone, and I hadn't flown since January 2020, just before COVID hit. So I was already like a nervous flyer. I've been a nervous flyer for years, but obviously having that break of 2 years just meant it all built up. Feelings I've never had before, because I always had something booked. Because the main thing for me, even though I'm nervous flying, like to be honest, like I do hate flying, but I love traveling, because obviously it's what we work for in it all year, to go on holiday. So I've never let it stop me. I've never let it stop me from traveling. But just having that time from January 20 to May 2022 to let that anxiety build up, I thought I need some kind of help here. So I searched on Spotify for fear of flying, and then Love Fly was the first one that came up, and I'm thankful I found it, because it really helped.
Oh, that's good to know. So let's just rewind a bit back then, because you said you've always been nervous. So I was curious about that.
Well, no, sorry, I've not always been nervous, but I've been a nervous flyer for probably, I don't know. I can't put a date on it, like a time when it suddenly became like such a nervous thing. But it wasn't as a child. Like I travelled loads as a child, all over the world really. And my sister lived in Tenerife when I was young. She moved back when I was 18, so we used to go there every year as well, like 2 or 3 times a year. And I was fine then as a child, as a teenager. Yeah. Probably in early adulthood, around 21, 22. So about probably around 10 years. I can't, like I said, I can't put a date on it, but I feel like it's built up over time, and it's just got worse and worse. And it's like,
so it's all kind of crept up on you then, really.
Yeah, and I don't know why. Like,
so what don't you like about the flying thing? Don't say all of it, because I need specifics.
No. So, well, historically, takeoff I really hated, but the flight I've done recently, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, like it's probably the best one I've had. Like I felt fine for takeoff, and that was a real achievement for me. But it's just sort of in-flight cruising, turbulence, noises, and just, I think I'm quite an anxious person anyway, and I think I catastrophize all the time, and just the thoughts that go around my head, like I just think we're going to crash every time, like every time.
And that's still going on as well, by the sound of it.
Yeah, although, shall I talk about the flights I did recently then?
Yeah, so I would like to know about that. I'm quite interested as well. You said about sort of the takeoff, the turbulence, the noises. There was something else you said as well. Just
my thoughts in my head, like I'm just catastrophizing about, like I'm literally sitting there waiting for something to happen.
So once you've taken off and you're in the cruise, what are you like then?
If I keep myself busy, I'm all right. But if I have any time to think, yeah. And
so I'm presuming then that landing's okay, because that's like the end of it all.
Yeah. Landing's always been fine. It's funny, isn't it? Because it's like,
great, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting closer to your destination, so landing's always been fine, because at the end of the day, like you're going down towards the ground. So yeah, great.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people will relate to that, and I've met many people over the years have said, because the takeoff can be things like the moment of commitment and all that sort of stuff, and that's it, you're there. But when you're coming into land, then there's a sort of relief felt, because you think, it's over, I've survived another one.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're aware of like catastrophizing. You think there's a sort of like a general anxiety that's also on top of that?
Yeah, I think it's just I'm an anxious person anyway, and I've struggled with anxiety, more like work-related anxiety over the last couple of years that I've sort of got under control. But I was medicated at one point, like taking medication for it, and that really helped. But I've come off that now. But I think that just contributes to it. So therefore, if I'm feeling anxious, then something that stresses me out a little bit will stress me out loads, and just have them anxious thoughts. Yeah.
You had that sort of COVID gap, which it's affected quite a lot of people actually. I mean, to be brutally frank, I haven't been on a flight since just before COVID either. So I'm hoping I won't be nervous, but I'm
sure you won't be.
I haven't been anywhere near one, and I'm desperate to get on one to go somewhere, anywhere. Well, so we've got a couple of flights coming up to Scotland shortly, which are just for work. I can't wait to do them. Just get on an aeroplane again.
Are they with Logan Air?
BA probably.
Oh, they with BA, yeah.
I like Logan Air.
I see the little Logan Airs flying over my house sometimes, and I think, I don't know whether I could go on them because obviously the small planes, aren't they? But
well, so I guess it's all relative, isn't it? Because I think if you compare a smaller aircraft to a larger one, the larger ones aren't going to move that much compared to the smaller ones. They're in the same air, but yes, it's like big ship, small ship, as I always said. But some people find it more helpful to go into an aircraft where they have a certain mindset around, like, I don't want a single aisle, I want a double aisle, or all different things.
Definitely, I've just booked another holiday for September, and there's 5. It's to Mallorca, and there's 5 flights a day, and I deliberately picked the early flight because it was on a Airbus A330, so a wide body aircraft, and just for me that was just satisfying to just be able to pick that rather than picking a narrow body plane. Like I deliberately picked that early flight, but my missus isn't happy now because it's 6:30 in the morning, so she's worrying about getting the baby up for the flight. So but I was like, listen, it makes me feel better. So
so a future possible self could be that you get to the point where it doesn't really matter. It's just an aircraft,
And I hope so.
So then bring us forward a bit. So you searched for Fear of Flying. You found the Love Fly podcast, and was there anything in particular that helped you, or anything you're particularly looking for?
Definitely, just listening to pilots is great, because obviously we don't really have that contact with pilots, do we? And but in the past, I remember being a kid and I used to draw pictures of the planes that we were on, and then we'd go to the flight deck and I'd meet the pilots and stuff like that. So obviously we don't have that contact with pilots anymore, and I don't know any. So just to be able to listen to pilots talk about it is great, especially around Turbulence and stuff like that, and about the takeoff, just all the different stages of takeoff. That's really helped me. But definitely Turbulence, just the stuff about that, just knowing that it is safe, and just explain how your body overcompensates, them small hairs in your ears. Just learning that, and I've been telling other people that because it's been one of the best things I've learned, definitely.
Yeah. So I think Captain Steve talks about that quite a lot, doesn't he? Yeah. About the hairs in the ears and the sensors, and we get confused, and so that was a thing that sort of really helped you, but
definitely, and the water bottle trick that helped me massively. So knowing about that, and the flight checklist as well,
Pete Higgins' checklist.
Pete Higgins, that was one. That flight checklist was amazing. So I think that's why my last takeoff was so good, because I've known about all the stages of takeoff anyway, and I knew that is it called the noise abatement? Is it?
Yes.
I knew that happened, and I knew what it was for, but still, just having the checklist in front of me to be able to read it just made it feel better for me.
Yeah. So I think the power of the checklist so Pete has obviously done loads of flights, and he's an aviation nut, really. He absolutely loves it, is that it brings in the rational part of your brain, because it's a checklist, isn't it? And it's easy to do. You just right, so we've leveled off now. It must be 1,500 feet because it's gone a bit quieter. The angle feels different. We're leveling off. It's noise abatement, and that's just that logic. Is that retraining? I'm guessing is what's happened for you. But anyway, that's my words. I'm putting words into your mouth.
No, but you're right. It's having it in front of you and reading it. So, if I didn't have that checklist in front of me, even though I know that the noise abatement is normal, still in my head I'm thinking, my stomach's dropping, or the plane feels like it's going to drop out of the sky. Even though I know it's not going to, but it's just reading it on the checklist is stopping my mind from having those thoughts. Yeah.
That's interesting. So, do you still get the sort of same feelings in your stomach and everything at that point?
Yeah, still get the same feelings, that drop in the stomach, and obviously it feels like the engines have gone off.
Mm.
But I know the plane's not going to fall from the sky.
Mm.
And I knew that anyway before I had that checklist. But just having the checklist in front of me, and I'm following it, I'm reading it, and it's just reinforcing it in your brain, isn't it? So
yeah. And so it might seem to anyone listening that was a weird question for me to ask about the sinking feeling, but one of the things that people have reported is that after a while, because you kind of expect it, your brain then generalizes it, and then sometimes you don't even notice it happens.
I'd probably say I didn't. I still felt it because I don't think you can help that, but it felt a lot less harsh than it normally would do. Yeah, so I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you can kind of rationalize it, I guess, by the sound of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the pilots particularly helped you. The water bottle trick, the stages of flight, the Pete Higgins checklist. So talk us through kind of what you noticed that was different, and so in terms of your thoughts, feelings before the flight, during the flight, since. You've got another one booked as well.
Yeah, so I mean, leading up to a flight, I'm always nervous anyway, and like my wife will say I'm dead grumpy. Like I've heard other people say that, like they just feel dead grumpy before a flight. One word answers when she talks to me and stuff. But it's because it's all going through your brain, isn't it? And obviously this time it's the first time I've flown with the baby, so that was like a new thing to worry about.
Well, did it make it worse? Would you think?
It wasn't as bad as I thought, and I think it's because I felt like I needed to be stronger than normal, because I don't want to pass this on to Dolly. So, I mean, I know she's too young anyway to be able to pick up this type of fear, but obviously I want to start early and not push this fear onto her. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd say getting to the airport and being at the airport, I still felt the same normal. I mean, in the past, I'd probably go to the bar or the lounge and drink lots of alcohol, because everyone knows it makes you feel better, doesn't it? Dutch courage. But I couldn't do that this time because having a baby, that's just out of the question. So that was one thing that was removed from me, but still felt all right. Just me normal.
So that's quite a significant thing then, actually, isn't it? Because that was your crutch to lean on.
Yeah.
Just to sort of like to sort of get yourself a little bit sort of out of your head.
Yeah.
Although some people told me that nervous flyers, when they drink lots of alcohol, it doesn't actually sort of hit them until a bit later. It's sort of because they're so nervous and so on the edge. I don't know if that's the same for you. I've never tried that as a strategy, but it almost kind of, it's more the act of doing it. It doesn't really do anything apart from a little bit of numbing. I don't know if that's the same for you.
I don't know. It always made me feel better.
Yeah. Do you feel more dehydrated or anything on board? Do you notice that?
No, because even when I am drinking, like I still keep myself hydrated with water.
Right.
So I'd still be on a flight drinking like lots of water, but then having a beer or whatever.
Oh, so a professional drinker.
Oh yeah.
Beer in one hand, water in the other. Is prepared. Yeah. Okay, so you noticed that you still felt the same, but you couldn't go to the bar, so you had to sort of manage around that. But you were still okay, in your words. And
I was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, but I think it was because of the podcast, definitely. Like I said, just hearing from pilots just talk about like how safe they are, and like all the, I can't remember the word you used, but like the redundancies, like the backup system.
Redundancy,
like,
capacity,
so just stuff like that, like just having that bit more knowledge definitely deep down helped me feel better. So yeah, got on the plane, and for the first time ever in my life, so in 31 years, I sat in the middle seat on the plane, because I was always sat in the window seat, and I've seen and heard other people talk about it on the group and on the podcast, but I just felt like I needed to be at the window just to look out and just check everything's all right.
Yeah, make sure the engine's working. I understand. Yeah, help the pilots if they needed it.
Yeah, exactly. So I took that away from myself as well, which was a big step for me, definitely.
So is that a choice that you deliberately made then?
I did. I made that choice. I mean, I would have wanted the baby to sit by the window, but I said to my wife, I said, listen, you have the window seat with baby, and I'll sit in the middle seat. And that definitely helped me, and I didn't think it would. I thought I'd feel worse, but it massively helped me, especially to take off. Why
do you think it helped?
Because instead of being focused on looking out the window, I was just staring straight ahead, and obviously you can see the plane at an angle taking off, and you can see the cabin crew just looking chilled as always, and it just made me feel so much better, and I didn't think it would.
So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's like you're in the here and now. So you increase your situational awareness, haven't you? Because you're
Yeah.
looking around at the aircraft, what's it actually doing, rather than sort of looking at them. Because some people find, I mean, personally, I'm not bothered about being by a window because I can't stand being trapped in. So if I need, because I go to the loo all the time, so I have to have an aisle seat because I'm an annoying passenger. So so that's maybe something I need to deal with, But I'm interested to sort of understand that. So you made that choice. So did you have someone? Was it a two-seater? Kind of like two seats. That was
No,
it.
it was free and free.
Oh right, okay.
It was just a Airbus A320. It was so just like a narrow body.
Yeah.
So I had someone next to me, and he said to me when we were taking off, he said, "Oh, this isn't my favourite type of transport." This, and I said, "Oh, no, it's not mine either."
Yeah. Did you find
But
each
I
other?
actually,
Did you? There's always
I,
more than you think on board.
well, yeah, that's another thing I've learned from the podcast. It's like 1 in 5 people, isn't it? And that's amazing to discover because you feel a bit on your own, don't you? Like, and especially within my family and like my wife's family, there's not really anybody else who's a nervous flyer, and they can't believe how nervous I am because they've sort of learned recently from what my wife told them on after the flights, like they didn't even know I was that bad. So yeah, you feel a bit on your own, but then when you hear that it's like 1 in 5 people, you realise, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's different stats, but it varies depending on where you read. But yeah, roughly around that, and that's the ones that will admit it. So I don't know if you remember from Professor Van Gerwen's talk. He said that if you ask people in the road, people won't admit to it, particularly blokes won't admit to it. But actually his years of research and running the Vault Centre, he said it's almost 50-50, but it's just who will admit it as well. So I mean, I know people who say I'm not scared of flying, but I just keep an eye on things, or I sit lightly, or whatever that means. But so there is more out there than people perhaps will admit to.
Yeah.
So you're definitely not alone. Well, I'm glad it's helped with that because many people do feel like there's something wrong with them, don't they?
Yeah. So yeah, this guy turned to me and said that, and we started speaking to each other. He was on his way to. We went to Portugal, but he was flying to Portugal to then go to Seville in Spain to watch Rangers in the Europa League final. He was a Scottish fella, and I found myself giving him hints and tips about flying, telling him about the water bottle with the turbulence, and he was a bit exactly me giving him hints and tips. When the plane was making turns, he was like, "Oh, I don't like this," and I was saying to him, "Listen, the computer generated turns. It's not like the pilot's just going to slip and flip us over. Like I said, these are computer generated. There's nothing to worry about, stuff like that." And I found it amazing that I was giving someone else help and advice. And as I posted on the group afterwards, and it was probably one of the best flights I've had in years. I wasn't nervous at all, and my wife said to me, like when we're in the air, I actually wasn't nervous at all. My wife was saying to me, "I've never heard you speak so much on the plane because normally I'm just sat there like, not speaking to anyone." But she said, "I've never seen you like that." And it was a great flight.
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal, isn't it?
But it shows that it's work in progress because it was a totally different experience flying back.
How long? So this is quite a common thing, by the way, because people will do the prep for the flight out, and then they go away and have a holiday and they relax. And if they're able to then forget about the flight, which a lot of people can't because they're already thinking, "Oh crap, I'll go back on one of those things as well." But they don't always put the same amount of prep in because they're on holidays. So it's like, "Oh, I don't need to." And if it's a night flight as well, which is always going to make you feel a bit crapper anyway. There's lots of factors that come into play. So what happened on the way back?
So I didn't think of, like you said, you build yourself up so much, don't you, for that flight going out, that you don't think about the one coming home. But I wasn't bothered about it on the week we were away. I didn't think about it, because I thought that flight went so well. I imagine it's going to be like that on the way home. But on the day of flying, so I think everything just built up really. The baby hadn't slept that well, and she was a bit sort of grumpy, whingy. So she was in a bad mood, and then I started thinking about what's the flight going to be like. So that was one thing, and then the transfer to the airport was late. So I like to get there, not mega early, but I like to get there early enough
Yeah.
to be able to sort of just enjoy the airport before you get on the plane, just to relax before you get on the flight. So that was late. When it came and picked us up, we were only going to pick 4 more people up from a different resort. It was just a minibus rather than a coach. We went to the hotel to pick these other people up. There was no sign of them. The driver went inside for about 20 minutes, so obviously adding more to the delay. Came outside and said they've not checked out. We think they've overslept in the hotel rooms, but we can't get them up. So we waited for about another 15 minutes. Then we carried on to the airport. But I made the mistake of saying to him, I said, "Are them people meant to be on our plane?" And he said, "Yeah." And then in my head, the catastrophizing, I'm like, oh my God, you hear stories about people oversleeping and missing flights that crash. And that was what was going around my head.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that was like another thing building up. And then I thought, and then we hadn't booked a window seat. So we ended up with like an aisle in the middle seat, and I was stressing about the baby not being able to be at the window and stuff like that. So everything was just building up.
It was compounding, wasn't it? One after.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so obviously the one about the part about the group of people missing our flight was just a massive one for me because I'm such a catastrophizer. So we got to the airport and I said to my wife, I said, I can't fly on this plane. And she was like, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'll get the train. And then I'd looked on Google Maps and it said it'd take a day and 19 hours to get back from Portugal. So she's like, don't be that. And then she said, why? And I said, because these people are missing our flight, and you hear stories about people missing flights and planes crashing. And she just laughed and said, don't be so ridiculous. She said, your mate missed the flight the other week when he was hungover. He was meant to be going playing golf and he missed the flight. And then I ended up having to get a later one. I said, oh, well, to be fair, yeah, all the rest of the lads survived. So I said, oh yeah, I'll fly then. So that was it. Yeah, I know. It was ridiculous, but anyway, we got on the plane and it was full. So I knew that them people had made it anyway. They must have got a taxi or something like that. And
isn't it amazing, just like pausing for a moment, what our mind does to ourselves? You know, I mean, you're an intelligent guy, you've got a responsible job, and yet we can talk ourselves into amazing things, can't we?
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. I've never felt that before. Like just how much everything had built up. Like I said, considering how good the flight out was going, I just knew I was going to be bad on the flight going home. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've had some success, but there's still, like you said, some work in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've booked another flight in September, is that right?
Yeah, September.
Yeah. So, what are you going to do between now and then? What's the plan?
Carry on listening to the podcast, definitely, and I'll probably look to do a course. I think I'll need to do a fearofflying course. Yeah.
So so it sounds like you've got a bit of a process or a plan going on then.
Yeah.
Have you worked out which type of course or anything? I'm not trying to sell anything, by the way. What you're going to think you'll do? Is it I'm guessing you're looking at one with a flight at the end, which is a lot.
Well, no, there's no point in doing one with a flight at the end because I've flown loads and it's not like I can get on a plane, as you know, so I have no issues about. Well, I do have issues about getting on a plane, but I will get on a plane because I want to travel. So yeah, it probably won't be one of the flights at the end, but just an informative course, just about. It's just more. I can't think of the word, but just basically listening to pilots talk about it, reinforcing it. I just need more positive reinforcement. Basically, I think that's all I need.
You're having a diet of podcasts, by the sound of it. What else are you trying in terms of other things, like alternative stuff, or?
Well, I downloaded an app just before we flew back. It's one that you recommended on here, but I can't remember what it's called now. Off my head.
Headspace, Calm.
No, a flying one.
Oh, Flight Radar, maybe that one.
No. Oh, I've got Flight Radar anyway because I'm a proper plane geek. So.
Oh, Simplify.
Yeah, Simplify.
Yeah.
So I'll do some work on that. I'll pay for the subscription on that and do a bit of work on that. But that is what I need, just positive reinforcement. I know deep down that it's the safest form of transport. You know, like I said, I'm a bit of a plane geek and I spend half my life on Flight Radar, and you just see how many flights are in the sky at each time, and just you know that the amount of planes that land daily safely. So yeah, it's not. I know deep down that it's the safest form of transport, but it's just positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
What it is, yeah.
Yes. Because interesting, isn't it? When you do know deep down, but there's a part of you
Yeah.
who's kind of also resisting that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, does this sort of pattern show itself in other aspects of your life, or is it just flying? I'm not trying to therapize you. I'm just genuinely interested whether it is confined to the one thing or not.
Boats.
Right.
Don't really like boats, but I had a bad experience on a boat. I've had bad experiences on planes, but I'm still here to tell a story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that it just shows. I've had some sticky situations on planes. I don't think anything massive, but I'm here to tell a story. And I've heard stories from other people where they've had issues on flights and landed. And I listened to the podcast the other day. The guy who'd flown over 20 million miles, is it? I can't remember his name, but he spoke about being on planes with attempted hijackings and bombs, etc.
Fred Finn.
Yeah, I listened to that one last night when I went walking the dog, and he's there to tell a story, and that's another thing that just shows it is the safest form of transport.
And he's still here. He's still flying.
Yeah.
So I think it's the balance of probabilities, isn't it? In your role for your work, you're always kind of thinking of managing the risk and stuff, and so it can kind of lead to that sort of mindset. And I think it's quite a common. I mean, I'm really grateful for you to come on and say it, particularly as well. I don't want to be sexist, but as a guy as well, because a lot of guys won't admit to it, so it's just really heartening as well.
Yeah, no, of course, right.
Have a few chaps on that talk about it as well, because it just normalises it. Then that it is a thing that affects men, women, all ages, all professions. And I've had loads of people who are in professions where they help others. I've had psychologists, I've had police, fire brigade, ambulance. It's just, it doesn't seem to be confined to certain types of people. It can be anybody. So bringing your story on is really, really helpful. So if you had some, you're work in progress, but you've had some success. I always say it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back with this type of thing. What tips would you give to anybody who's listening who's maybe in a similar situation to you?
Well, listen to the podcasts, obviously, especially the ones with pilots. Use the checklist, the Peter Higgins checklist for flying, definitely. And if you're nervous about turbulence, there's videos on YouTube of captains talking about turbulence. I watched one recently where it was the captain explained, I think there's 9 different types of turbulence, or maybe even more, it might have been 12, but talking about all the different types of turbulence. But it's just that reinforcement of saying, listen, turbulence isn't unsafe to the plane. The only thing it's unsafe to is if the cabin crew are out of the seats and don't have belts on and we hit a bit of turbulence, they might injure themselves. That's the only danger, really.
Yeah. That's really useful. Any particular? Can you remember any links? Because obviously, I'm not one to encourage people to go onto YouTube and Google and stuff, because once that gets into your settings, then it'll show you all sorts of stuff linked to aircraft, and some of that may or may not be helpful. Because I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, I saw an image that's really disturbed me, and I meant to say to them, that's because your computer, your cookies have learned that's the stuff you want to see. It's going to show you more of it, so time to clear the cache.
Yeah, definitely.
If you do remember, that'd be useful. You remember who these pilots were?
No, I can't, but I'll message you it so you can.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I'll put it in the and I'll put it in the Facebook group as well, the Love Fly Facebook group for anyone who's listening who hasn't joined. So because that's where Rob has been you've been very generous with your time, putting little comments in and answering people's questions and stuff. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's good to help other people, because other people have helped me just from stuff that I've read on there.
Yeah. Well, it's a great little community. So thank you for being part of it, and also, I'm really grateful for you giving your time today. So thanks a million. It's brilliant.
No problems.